again.
Today I'm at the water parks pond, and this video is a continuation of my previous video, which was the top 6 lures of October. If you haven't seen that video already, go ahead, check that video out and check out my top 6 lures for the month of October. And do not forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel, so that whenever I upload a new video, you guys are the first ones to know. But as I said in the previous video, I would be making individual videos for all those 6 lures, and I'm not going to use this paddle tail today. What I'm going to use though is the number 1 lure that I mentioned in my video, which was a buzzbait. Now for a buzzbait, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to use this 7'2", 50-pound braid, and the reel ratio is 7:3:1. Definitely somewhat of a faster reel for a buzzbait. I know this is not an ideal setup, but it's what I could get. Definitely sometime in the future I may get a reel which is even faster than this one. So I'm going to start off with this specific kind of buzzbait. It has a white skirt and somewhat of a pinkish red belly and red eyes, a silver blade, which is really good. So the weather conditions are fairly calm. There is definitely a gentle breeze going on. The temperature is about in the low 70s, and the water has a lot of vegetation on it. So we'll try our buzzbait here, try our luck here, and then if not, we would definitely move to another body of water. To tie the buzzbait on, I am going to use the fisherman's knot. We're going to do the same thing with our other buzzbait. I'm tying on 2 buzzbaits on 2 different poles. This one is 12 pounds of mono. Okay, both of our poles are ready, and let's go hit the water now. Okay, I'm here by the pond, and now already I can see a lot of small fry swimming in super shallow water. And the fry that I can see in water of about less than 4 inches really are no bigger than my thumbnail. So that tells you how small of a bait profile these fish like at this time of the year. Oops. In such vegetation, when I'm fishing around large vegetation, grass like a pond like this, always make sure that there is no grass between the blades or anywhere around the lure, because they definitely restrict the movement and the action. And all I'm doing is just I'm casting and I'm retrieving it. That's all I'm doing, nothing special. And this is the reason why I love a lure like this, because you don't have to do anything special. It's super easy for beginners, really cool to learn fishing with. sometimes what I would experiment with is the speed of retrieval. I would first reel in super fast and then keep decreasing the speed down, where I almost have a constant thump of the blade against the water. There's just so many gnats here. They're driving me crazy. But right now I'm retrieving it with a constant speed, just so that the fish have time to key in on what's going on around them and where's it coming from. What you do have to do is, as I said before, you have to experiment. You have to experiment to find that perfect sweet spot in the middle where the fish can easily key in, but at the same time they cannot have a good look at the lure, and they just react, because that's what most of the fish strikes are most of the times, is that they're reaction strikes. They haven't really shown interest in the bigger sized buzzbait, so I'm going to try the smaller sized buzzbait and see what happens. Because the setup is not really ideal for throwing a buzzbait, what I usually end up doing is I reel faster than I would typically do using any other bait, and I keep my rod tip up. That keeps the bait just at the surface level where it's supposed to be, instead of being submerged. And I try to reel it as soon as it hits the water. The pond over the water park, it has so much vegetation, so much grass and other things just floating around at the top, so it's almost impossible for me to throw a topwater lure of any kind. I'm going to start off with this smaller sized lure and see what happens. The water here is I would actually say it's pretty dirty. Definitely a lot more dirty than the pond I previously visited. So darker colors in this kind of situation, darker colors such as this black that I'm throwing right now, they're really good in dirty conditions. Yes! First catch of the day, a largemouth bass. Isn't really a big one, but I will take whatever the day gives me. Now the trick to handling a largemouth bass, or really any of the fish, is that when you lip them, make sure that you're not just lifting them up from their jaws like this. If you are wanting to hold them horizontally, make sure to support their bodies from the other end, or if you're really just wanting to lip them, just hold them vertically. Clearly I had hooked this largemouth by the corner of the lip, which is how it is supposed to be, and definitely the smaller ones, as I said in my previous video, that this time of the year in October, smaller profile baits are the ones that are to go. You could occasionally try throwing bigger profile baits here and there, like my other buzzbait on my 7'2" medium heavy combo, but the smaller profile baits are going to be the ones that are going to shine. Since this was dirtier water, I knew something darker like this black would shine well, as you know, in contrast to something of a bluegill pattern or chartreuse. But definitely this is the first catch of the day. Hopefully it's not going to be the last one, and now it's time to let it go. One thing over time that I've realized is that at this time of the year, you know, starting from mid-September to early October, which is early fall, the fall transition period, is that they either bite the buzzbait or they don't. There's really no anything in between. There are going to be some days where they just absolutely destroy the buzzbait time after time, and it wouldn't really matter what time of the day it is. And there are days when no matter how many times you would throw the buzzbait to them, they won't like it. Another thing I've learned is once you throw a buzzbait into a fish and you don't hook them, or they bump it, they don't bite it, or whatsoever, for whatever reason you're not able to get that fish on board or to you, you've lost that element of surprise. And for that very reason, it is very important when you're fishing with a buzzbait to have some kind of a top water that you can reel in with extended pauses. This is a Rebel Pop R in shad pattern. You could throw in any top water style bait. Some people would throw a Rapala skater. Some people like to throw a popper style bait, something like this. Some people throw small pencil sized bait like Spark Junior, which is a very heavy knock. This has, I believe, a couple BBs in it, but what it does is that it actually allows me to keep this bait in the area for longer periods of time, for extended pauses, and it really entices the fish. So the fish that you've just missed, what you can do is have this thing tied on, or any other top water lure, whether it's a popper, any popper style bait, any small pencil style baits, or even a frog, such as the Pat Crusher. I like them in black, but whatever style buzzbait you're throwing, it is really important to have a follow-up lure, such as this Rebel Pop R for it. When it comes to adjusting the buzzbait, there are several ways. Now, if you go out in the market, you can find several different kinds or styles of buzzbaits. There are buzzbaits that have already a body attached to them. It could be a fat grub, it could be a horny toad. There are buzzbaits that have double blades on them, but I'm fairly basic with what I use. Skirt, single blade, and what I would do at most is just attach a trailer hook, and what I've done is attach the peg here, which I usually use to I could use this peg for any other style or any other techniques to fish, such as a Texas rig or anything else. But as far as adjusting the buzzbait goes, I like my wire right above the hook, and what I would do at most is, as I said, I would just attach a trailer. As far as the ones that have double blades or even 3 blades, as far as the ones that come with a body attached to them, it's basically just the market trying to reinvent something that's already been tried and tested for several decades. And it works. And as I said, I'm open to experimenting. I like experimenting myself. But when it comes to buzzbait, I really just stick to the basics: single blade, skirt, and all the most I would do is attach a trailer hook, and the wire for me should be directly above the hook. I don't like them too wide open or too closed up. It just directly should be above the hook. Another important thing to learn about the buzzbait is that they're more of a fish finder, and you could call them search baits for sure, especially at this time of the year when the fish are scattered. You don't really know where the fish are, and you're trying to find fish, especially when it comes to fishing a new body of water. So you don't really have to catch them on a search bait, because their prime target is to tell you where the fish are and where they're not. So the wind's not been blowing much, and since it's been fairly sunny today, the fish have for sure dug into the vegetation, and this job is more so for another topwater lure, which is weedless, such as a frog. As far as colors go, I only throw 2 kinds of colors when it comes to buzzbaits: black and white, some kind of shad pattern. It could be white or any really translucent colors, especially this time of the year. That's what the bass are on. I usually throw my whites and more translucent colors in water that has more than 1.5 of clarity, and for dirtier waters which have less than a foot of clarity or even a foot of clarity, I would use something in black. Now the place that I'm fishing at, it's fairly shallow, and that's where the buzzbaits really excel. They really shine in shallow water. The most I would fish the buzzbaits would be 4 feet of water, 5 feet of water, maybe if I'm really pushing it, 6 feet of water. But that's really a limitation, you could say, for a buzzbait. They're not really meant for deep waters. They're meant for shallow waters, and it's something you can use to your advantage too, especially this time of the year when the water temperatures are starting to change, and the early mornings are really cold, and as we get later into the day, sun comes up, and you need to take your hoodies off, and the nights again are fairly cold again. They're fairly chilly. Could you catch them in 15 to 20 feet of water? Maybe, possibly. As I said, when hungry fish want something to eat, I want something to eat, but they really are made for shallower water. There are 2 kinds of baits. One that the fish see, and the other ones are more of a sound bait. Buzzbaits are for sure they're sound baits, which is the reason why they do so much better when the water's shallow. When the fish are in shallow water, they're going to be able to hear the buzz of the buzzbait. and they're gonna be able to key in precisely where your lure is. As I said, at this time of the year, buzzbaits do really good early in the morning, and that's when the fish are out from the vegetation. You know, they come out of the vegetation such as this, and early morning is when it does more of a buzzbait job rather than a frog job. But as we go later into the day, around 9 and 10, the bite just stops. It just stops, and it's just really interesting how earlier in the morning, around 6 or 7, they were really on a buzzbait and a topwater bite, but later into the day they just stop biting. That's when I put my buzzbaits down and pick up something else, more of a stationary bait, such as a pad crusher, and then what I would do is in the middle of the day, you know, around 1 or even as early as 12, I would pick them up again. That's when I've noticed the fish are back on a buzzbait. Could you get a fish of a lifetime on a buzzbait fishing around 12 p.m., 1 p.m.? Possibly, but definitely you're not going to get as many bites around later in the day. You're going to get more bites earlier in the day. You got fish? No, there's no way. There is no way. You know, I've been asked $1 million question: when is it time to change your lures or put a bait down and pick up something else? When it comes to the buzzbaits, if you're not getting a bite for an hour, 2 hours, I think it's really time to switch the baits. Especially when you've lost confidence in that bait, and your instincts over time will tell you yourself when exactly is the time to put something different on or change lures altogether. Are you wanting to change the technique? Sometimes all you got to do is change the skirt on a buzzbait, and sometimes all you got to do is change the color of the blades on a buzzbait, and sometimes you just got to go to a popper, sometimes you got to go to a pad crusher, you know, or sometimes the good old Texas style creature or worm would do the trick. So it's really something that people can tell by the instincts, but for sure when it comes to a buzzbait, there's not a gray line. So we have not gotten any bite in quite some time. Now, you know, for me at least, it's time to drop the buzzbait and move on. Let's go have some dinner. Thank you so much for joining me. This is part 1 of the video earlier I posted, top 6 lures of fall transition. After this, I'm gonna switch on to the number 2 top 6 lures of the fall transition. Thank you so much for joining me. Like, share, subscribe, and comment when do you think it's time to change lures.